hello there. I'm glad you're here. You are the only you there is, and that is quite interesting. I thank you for your interest in this video. I was just practicing chromatic scales on all 6 strings of my guitar. In order for us to practice chromatic scales on all 6 strings of the guitar, we must utilize all that we have learned from Lesson 1 and Lesson 2 of the Mesenberg Method for guitar. If you have not yet absorbed the information found in Episode 1 and Episode 2 of the Mesenberg Method for guitar, you can find links to these videos in the description below. I now welcome you to the Mesenberg Method for the wind. The wind! Long time ago, there was howling wind through the trees. And what happened? The little bunny rabbit was hopping like this through the forest. The birds were singing. And then the wind stopped. I now welcome you to the Mesenberg Method for guitar. In this episode of the Mesenberg Method for Guitar, we continue our musical journey with Lesson 3, Applying the Musical Alphabet and Chromatic Scale to the Guitar. This lesson will teach you how to apply the musical alphabet and chromatic scale to the entire guitar fretboard by practicing chromatic scales on all 6 strings of the guitar. What was that? It's a shadow person. Oh my God. This lesson is an excerpt from the Mesenberg Method Book One, Basic Guitar Fundamentals. You can find this book and other Mesenberg Method lesson books at our official website, mesenbergmethod.com. Also at our website, you will find information on how to sign up for your very own personalized live Skype lessons with me. There's a link in the description below. If you are new to our channel, please subscribe. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, ring that notification bell, and share this video with others. Support from you and others you know will help our channel to grow. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I will answer all relevant questions as soon as possible. So now, let's begin. Lesson 3. Applying the musical alphabet and chromatic scale to the guitar. To pick notes on the guitar, we pluck each string in a downward motion using the guitar pick held with our picking hand. The note that names each string is the pitch that is produced when we pick the string with no finger held down on the fretboard with our fretting hand. This is called an open string. For example, if we pick the low E string open, no finger held down, the note heard would be a low E note. If we pick the open A string, then an A note is sounded. If we pick the open D string, then we hear a D note. If we pick the G string open, a G note is heard. By picking the B string open, we create a B note. Finally, if we pick the high E string open, then a high E note is sounded. Now, let's return to the low E string. As an open string, this low E produces a low E note. If we press and hold down this string at the first fret on the fretboard with our fretting hand, the note produced would be 1 pitch higher than E, or the next note in the musical alphabet. This note would be F. When you press down the string, don't push on the fret itself. Push down just before the fret and pick the string downward with your picking hand. You should now hear an F note. If we hold the low E string down just before the second fret,
the note heard would be one more pitch higher in the musical alphabet. This pitch would be an F-sharp note. At the 3rd fret, we find the next note in the musical alphabet, G. The 4th fret produces the next note in the musical alphabet, G sharp. The 5th fret goes back to the beginning of the musical alphabet with the A note. For each fret thereafter, keep following the musical alphabet, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, and E. At the 12th fret, we are now back to the E note. This is the note we started on with the open low E string, but not the same exact E note, for this E note transcended in pitch, one octave higher. The 12th fret will have some form of fret indicator on the guitar neck, such as a dot on the side or 2 dots on the fretboard. The 12th fret on the guitar always produces an octave note of each open string. For example, the 12th fret on the A string produces an A note 1 octave higher than the open A string. The 12th fret on the D string would sound out a D note 1 octave higher than the open D string. The same rule applies to the G, B, and high E strings. The octave note of each of these open strings is located at the 12th fret. The notes following the 12th fret keep moving forward through the musical alphabet, 1 octave higher. With this information, we can now figure out every single note on the guitar. If we start on the open E string and pick all 12 notes in sequence, reaching the octave E note at the 12th fret, then we are playing the E chromatic scale. If we start on the open A string and pick all 12 notes in sequence reaching the octave A note at the 12th fret, then we are playing the A chromatic scale. If we start on the open D string and pick all 12 notes in sequence reaching the octave D note at the 12th fret, then we are playing the D chromatic scale. The same rule applies to the G, B, and high E strings. Playing all the notes in order from open string to the octave note at the 12th fret is playing the chromatic scale the string is named for. The starting and ending notes name the scale. We will start this practice process with the low E string and play an E chromatic scale. Begin the scale by picking the open E string. The next 4 notes in the scale will be played using each of the 4 fingers on your fretting hand. Your first finger, or index finger, plays the note at the 1st fret. Now, think of the musical alphabet. Which note is next after E? The F note is next after E. Recite F to yourself when picking the note at the 1st fret.
F.
Your second finger, or middle finger, plays the note at the 2nd fret. Using sharps, which note is next after F in the musical alphabet? The F sharp note is next after F. Recite F sharp to yourself when picking the note at the 2nd fret.
F sharp.
Your third finger, or ring finger, plays the note at the 3rd fret. In the musical alphabet, which note is after F sharp? The G note is next after F sharp. Recite G to yourself as you pick the note at the 3rd fret.
G.
Your fourth finger, or pinky finger, plays the note at the 4th fret. Which note is next after G in the musical alphabet? The G sharp note is next after G. Recite G sharp to yourself when picking the note at the 4th fret.
G sharp.
Now we will shift to the 5th position on the guitar. This means moving the first finger on your fretting hand to the 5th fret in order to play the next sequence of notes in the E chromatic scale. The last note you recited while playing at the 4th fret was the G sharp note. Which note is next? The A note is next in line in the musical alphabet. Recite A to yourself when picking the note at the 5th fret, using the first finger on your fretting hand.
A.
The second finger plays the note at the 6th fret. In the musical alphabet, which note is next after A? The A sharp note is next after A. Recite A sharp to yourself when picking the note at the 6th fret.
A sharp.
Your third finger plays the note at the 7th fret. Which note is next after A sharp in the musical alphabet? The B note is next after A sharp. Recite B to yourself when picking the note at the 7th fret.
B.
Your fourth finger plays the note at the 8th fret. In the musical alphabet, which note is next after B? The C note is next after B. Recite C to yourself when picking the note at the 8th fret.
C.
To play the 4 remaining notes of the E chromatic scale, we will shift to the 9th position on the guitar. Move the first finger of your fretting hand to the 9th fret on the guitar. The last note you recited while playing at the 8th fret was the C note. Which note is next? The C sharp note is next in line. Recite C sharp to yourself as you pick the note at the 9th fret, using the first finger on your fretting hand.
C sharp.
Your second finger plays the note at the 10th fret. In the musical alphabet, which note is next after C sharp? The D note is next after C sharp. Recite D to yourself when picking the note at the 10th fret.
D.
Your third finger plays the note at the 11th fret. Which note is next after D? The D sharp note is next after D. Recite D sharp to yourself when you are picking the note at the 11th fret.
D sharp.
Your fourth finger plays the note at the 12th fret. In the musical alphabet, which note is next after D sharp? The E note is next after D sharp. We have now reached the octave note in the E chromatic scale. Recite E to yourself as you pick the note at the 12th fret.
E.
Now it is time to play the E chromatic scale backwards. Starting where we left off with the octave E note played with your fourth finger at the 12th fret, recite E to yourself when picking this note.
E.
To descend or play the notes backward in the scale, getting lower in pitch, apply what you have practiced in Practice Process 1. Use flats to name the notes that are in between the 7 letters of the musical alphabet. When playing the scale backwards, your third finger plays the note at the 11th fret. Which note is next to E when descending in the chromatic scale? E flat is next after E when playing the chromatic scale backwards. Recite E flat to yourself when picking the note at the 11th fret.
E flat.
Continue the chromatic scale backwards, using the same fingerings with your fretting hand as you used while playing the chromatic scale forwards. Recite the name of each note to yourself while picking the note at each fret.
D. D flat.
Shift your hand into the 5th and 1st positions when needed to play the notes in each 4-finger sequence. Playing the chromatic scale backwards, your 4th finger leads your hand in the 5th position, fretting the note at the 8th fret.
C. B. B flat. A.
Your 4th finger also leads your hand at the 1st position, fretting the note at the 4th fret, playing the sequence of notes backwards.
A flat. G. G flat. F.
The last note descending in the chromatic scale is reached when picking the open low E string with no finger held down with your fretting hand. Recite E to yourself when picking the open low E string to complete the E chromatic scale.
E.
Apply the technique and theory you used for the E chromatic scale on the low E string to the 5 other strings on your guitar. The only difference is that you start on a different note in the musical alphabet for each string. For the A string, you will play the A chromatic scale, starting with the open A string and ending with the octave A note at the 12th fret.
A sharp. B. C. C sharp. D. D sharp. E. F. F sharp. G. G sharp. A.
Then proceed with the A chromatic scale backwards. Remember to use the same fingerings with your fretting hand, shifting into the 5th, 9th, and 1st positions where appropriate.
A flat. G. G flat. F. E. E flat. D. D flat. C. B. B flat. A.
For the D string, you will play the D chromatic scale.
D. D sharp. E. F. F sharp. G. G sharp. A. A sharp. B. C. C sharp. D. D. D flat. C. B. B flat. A. A flat. G. G flat. F. E. E flat. D.
For the G string, you will play the G chromatic scale.
G. G sharp. A sharp. B. C. C sharp. D. D sharp. E. F. F sharp. G. G. G flat. F. E. E flat. D. D flat. C. B. B flat. A flat. G.
For the B string, you will play the B chromatic scale.
B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, B, B flat, A flat, G, G flat, F, E flat, D flat, C, B.
Finally, for the high E string, you will play the E chromatic scale at a higher octave. Remember that the 12th fret is always an octave of the open string.
E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E flat, D flat, C, B flat, A flat, G flat, F, E.
If for some reason you were to recite a note different than the octave note at the 12th fret while practicing, this means you made a mistake somewhere in the scale or musical alphabet. This can happen to all of us as we are learning. Just go back and try the scale again, and you will probably see where the mistake was made. The 12th fret is your checkpoint. Always start out slowly with these scales. Play and recite the notes correctly, forwards and backwards. With correct repetition, you will begin to gradually play and recite the notes of the scales faster over time. Do not rush this process. Go with the true flow of your capabilities. If you always do your best will get better.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to continue your study of basic guitar fundamentals, check out the Mesenberg Method Book One, Basic Guitar Fundamentals, available at our website. Also, please subscribe for more lesson videos.
More videos coming soon.